Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough. I love that intro. It's so melodious. It gets you just breathing deeply. And joining us on Good Vibes once again, Debbie, who can see very well today.
I can. LASIK all done.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it's
How you
incredible. Incredible.
Really?
It's one of the best decisions I've ever made by far.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many fingers do I have? You say
It's
three.
the far
right?
distance that has changed.
Oh,
It's good. It's clear
okay,
out
I'm just
there.
checking. Right. So today we're going to talk about commanding respect.
Yeah.
Probably a tough thing to do for some people.
For a lot of people, actually, right? And so we want to talk about receiving respect from the outside, because nothing's worse than feeling like you're walking around being disrespected by people, underestimated, disregarded, right? And a lot of people are walking through life like that, not knowing how to get beyond that sort of self-concept that they have at this point and rise up to a new level where they feel respect coming at them. And we've talked about this before. It all is a reflection of your relationship to yourself to begin with, right? Your self-concept, really, you're never going to outlive your self-concept.
Right.
So the problem is that if you've had a lifetime of being communicated to that you're not a respectable person, people cutting you off, dismissing you, making fun of you perhaps even, it sort of reinforces that negative self-concept, and that there is a lowering of respect oftentimes that happens for yourself. And that gets reflected out, and it's sort of a feedback loop that keeps going, right? So let's talk about some strategies to actually get you outside of that comfort level. I know that you don't have this problem, but surely someone at home, or surely you know somebody who can use this information.
Okay.
The first thing that we want to talk about is eye contact. Okay, we are creatures of nature, and we've talked about this before. There are countless studies that show that human beings simply look for cues in our physical body language and the things that we do to evaluate whether we're somebody that deserves our respect, our trust, whether they're competent, whether they're confident, whether they're leaders, right? All of these things are sort of happening in these little micro perceptions, right? And eye contact is one of them. What it's been shown is that people who are respectable and confident, they tend to focus on the eyes or above, all right? Now, for somebody who has problems connecting to other people, maybe it makes you nervous to look someone in the eyes. A trick is the eyebrow trick. So look and focus on the eyebrows, and it will look as though you're looking them in the eyes, and you'll be signaling that confidence. And then once again, you'll get the feedback from the other person, a raising of respect, which will help you then to start making eye contact.
I've never really looked at anybody's eyebrows before.
Yeah, so it's eyebrow,
okay.
it's eye line and above is what confident people tend to do. So it's all the way up to the forehead, right? So again, at home, if you have a hard time making eye contact, check out the eyebrows and see how that does for you. Okay,
right, I'll try that.
The second thing is something that I underscore a lot with my clients, and that is your walk. Now, again, whether good, bad, right, or wrong, science has shown that people will evaluate whether or not you're somebody respectable by the way that you carry yourself. In fact, there was a very interesting study where a researcher went out to a busy street in New York and for 3 days straight just filmed passerbys, going in front of the camera, walking. Took that video footage into a prison and actually asked inmates to evaluate, based on just what they saw, who they would be most likely, on a scale of 1 to 10, who they would be most likely to assault. What they found is very interesting. It had nothing to do with race, gender, physical size even. So where you might think, well, maybe someone who's older or a little woman would be more, it wasn't that. In fact, there were two commonalities for the people identified as most attackable, if you will, people with a low respect. And the first one was their stride length. So people with a shorter stride length tended to look frail and an easy target. So a way to think about this is that we talked about this before. Someone who walks confidently opens up their stride. right? So you can go medium to long stride in a confident manner, putting one foot in front of the other. If your strides are very small, just go a little bit outside of your comfort level and open up your stride a little bit more. The second thing was the swing of the arms. People who did not swing their arms looked like they were unstable. And if you think about this, we were designed to counterbalance our walk with our arms. So a swinging arm looks very confident and it makes the person look more competent. Problem these days, of course, is that a lot of people have their phones, right? So their arms are pinned right here. Or if you have your hands in your pockets, don't do it. When you're in public, start practicing freeing up your hands, opening up your stride, and swinging your arms so that your walk is more confident, because it has been proven by science that if you don't, you look like an easier target for predators.
You remember the movie Stir Crazy with Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor?
I don't think I've seen it.
Well, Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder went to prison, and they thought they were going to be beat up on or molested or whatever.
Right.
So Gene Wilder started walking around during the breaks in the prison, long strides, moving his hands, going, "That's right, we bad." We bad. So
That's it.
the whole time you're saying that, walk with the stride, I'm thinking of Gene Wilder.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're designed to respond to the cues that we get from other people. And unfortunately, if you have a lower evaluation of yourself, if your confidence is low, if you don't have a lot of self-respect, other people just assume that you know better than anybody whether you deserve that respect or not. And they tend to, especially predatory people, they tend to reflect that back to you in very, small and large ways. And of course, the worst case scenario, someone who has a predatory instinct picks you out as a target, even above somebody who physically is smaller, who's older, because you look like somebody who is just less respectable and easier to get.
Just real quick, I was at a tennis tournament in Monroe. This woman was introducing me to her son, who is from Monroe. She's from Monroe, too. He walked up to me with so much confidence, shook my hand. He's a senior quarterback.
Yeah.
And I'm going, wow, his leadership abilities at that age were obvious to me.
It leaves an impression.
It does.
Yeah.
All right, hold that thought. We're coming right back. Don't go away. Today's social media segment is brought to you by Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality. All right, we are back. Debbie Cox de Nova is here. Good vibes, commanding respect. All right, take it up again. I'm interested.
Yeah, so we had eye contact. We had the way that you move your body when you walk. Now there's competence. We've talked about how charisma is a combination of both competence and warmth. Competence is a really important one. There needs to be something in the world that you are good at, that you're getting great at if you're not already great at. You need a skill that you feel super confident in. And to remember that there are 4 stages of learning. There's the unconscious incompetence. That's when you just don't know that you don't even know, right? Then there's the conscious incompetence. I know that I'm incompetent, right? And you're moving up on the scale. Then there's the conscious competence. I have to think about it, but I'm getting better at it. And what you're shooting for ultimately is unconscious competence. You don't have to think about it. You're so good at it. Probably what you do when you sit at the desk, if someone asks you to film something right away, there probably isn't a whole lot of prep time, if any, that you actually need before you're on and into the camera. And that takes practice, right? So being able to hone in on a skill to the degree that you can actually produce a lot of competence. And the key is that you're so good at it that you can actually teach others to do it. So hone a skill, make a list of things that you need to learn in order to get really good at something that calls to your heart, and start to put your one foot in front of the other to become a master at that, because that will actually improve your own self-respect, which will also increase the respect that comes
But
at you.
don't get to the point of cockiness.
No, and we talked about that before too.
Keep that confidence.
Yes.
And because confidence on women too is attractive to men.
Yes, both ways.
But not. Some people go overboard, and you can see when they're going overboard, they're trying too hard.
Yeah.
And you're going,
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's hard to fake skills, right? You either have skills or you don't have skills. You can fake it to a degree, and then once it comes, when the rubber meets the road, you have to actually be able to produce results. And so being able to actually hone those skills, and it's different for everybody depending on what you want to do in life, okay? So the next one is staying calm, protecting your peace. This is a very interesting one. You know, it's been actually shown, and I talk with my clients a lot about this, is when you're stepping into an arena with someone who's combative in any way, whether it's physically combative or verbally combative, the person who's actually be able to regulate their nervous system the best in those situations are actually have the most influence. So the other person could be raging, but if you're able to hold an anchor into your peace, you can think about like the Kung Fu movies, right?
Yeah.
It's the one who's centered and calm and still has their faculties about them. That's the one that is actually is to be feared the most, right? The ones who kind of like all over the place.
Attorneys would develop a skill for that.
For sure. And this is what's interesting is that there's been a study that shows that if you're able to actually hold your calm and peace and regulate your nervous system, that's actually associated with higher socioeconomic status and higher income. So they took a group of men into a room and they showed them a movie that was disgust-inducing, like the kind that would make you retch, right? And they evaluated their reactions to the movie, and the men who had the least reaction to this movie were the ones with more wealth and more socioeconomic status, and that is what people associate to someone who's able to stay calm in very crazy circumstances. So if you have someone who typically dysregulates your nervous system or a situation, start to practice like pulling back and really remembering, taking breaths, that the calm person is actually the one who keeps their faculties on. Remember the amygdala hijack. Remember when your amygdala or that fight or flight experience is triggered, your prefrontal cortex cools off. You're not able to think rationally, think skillfully, right? And in certain circumstances, you really want those faculties online.
When you want to go.
Exactly. And people will respect you more because, again, they associate that with
Who was the guy in
status.
Karate Kid? Who was the instructor? Miyoto or something?
I don't even remember.
Something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody will email me. No, it wasn't Miyoto. That's all right. Okay.
Yeah. In martial arts, they teach you that, right? Like the calm, and that is a very powerful place to start. You do not want to be all over the place using your rage because you're offline in that, right?
Plus, if you use the rage all the time, it loses its effect.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Keep that one for the good one.
Okay, the other one is that you want to compliment other people. You know, a thing that happens when we feel low respect is that we have a tendency to maybe in some circumstances not want to give compliments to other people because it makes us kind of feel lower. But what's interesting is it's the opposite effect. We talked about this, how people who like the most people end up being the most popular, right? But there's something very interesting called spontaneous trait transfer, okay? And that means that whenever you actually compliment somebody, in the words that you use to compliment them, they automatically have a tendency to assign those traits back to you, right? So if I say, you know, what I've noticed about you, Martin, is that you're really articulate and you're super intelligent. You would say thank you, but there is a phenomenon where you will actually assume that I am also articulate and intelligent.
The only way she can know that is if she is herself.
Correct, exactly. And so if you are
Thanks for noticing that.
Right. If you're someone who is reluctant to give compliments, especially to people maybe that you think already know that they're great, I encourage you to start practicing giving compliments and recognizing that by giving compliments, you're not taking away from your own self-worth. In fact, based on spontaneous trait transfer, you actually are increasing the chances that they will also respect you higher and think the same thing of you.
And they might be a client.
And they might end up being a client.
Yeah, so it works in all realms.
Exactly.
There you go.
And then the last thing is don't let people cut you off. People who cut you off while you're talking, there are some very kind and direct ways that you can actually complete your sentence. People who cut you off tend to think less of you, right? So if someone starts talking over you, one kind way that you could do it is just to raise your finger and keep talking until you're done with the end of the sentence. And then, or if there's someone who's very rudely cutting you off, you can always use the technique of quietly waiting and then going, may I finish, right? And then really kind of asserting yourself.
Embarrasses them.
Yes, if someone is underestimating you and disrespecting you, you deserve to actually address that kindly.
Excuse me, I was not finished yet.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You can be kind, and you can be generous, and you can still be direct.
All right, good show.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Yes.
And we'll see you next week.